The sun hung low over the dusty plains of western Texas, casting long shadows over Eli Thompson's ranch. A man of few words, Eli was a cowboy through and through, rugged, steady, and solitary. His life was simple, spent tending cattle, mending fences, and riding his faithful horse, Rusty. Eli didn't expect much, and that's exactly how he liked it. There was peace in the routine, even if it was a hard, lonely life. But one fateful morning, everything changed. Eli's mailbox, which was usually as empty as his prospects, held a letter that seemed almost out of place, an official-looking envelope sealed with wax. Inside was a legal document, something so absurd it made Eli question his own eyes. It told him that he had inherited an island, a tropical paradise, no less. And not just any island, but one once owned by a notorious pirate captain, Blackbeard Jack. The letter's message was straightforward. Eli was the legal heir, the last of the line, and the island was his to claim. At first, he laughed it off. Who would leave an island to a cowboy like him? But curiosity gnawed at him. Maybe it was a chance to break free from the endless grind of ranch life. Maybe, just maybe, it was an opportunity for something more. Eli packed his bags and made the decision he was going. With Rusty by his side, he set out for a place that seemed like nothing more than a ridiculous dream. But the island, with its mystery and hidden past, was more than just a destination. It was a doorway to an adventure neither he nor Rusty could have ever predicted. The days spent traveling from the flat, sun-baked plains to the distant Caribbean island felt like a lifetime. Eli Thompson wasn't used to the hustle of busy ports or the chaotic energy of bustling ships. He'd always preferred the quiet solitude of his ranch. But here, in the midst of the unfamiliar, there was something stirring, a flicker of excitement mixed with unease. Rusty, ever the loyal companion, stood beside Eli as they boarded a creaky old ship. The vessel, aptly named the Sea Wanderer, was nothing more than a patched-up relic of the past. Its timbers groaned as it rocked against the choppy waves, but Eli was determined to see the journey through. His gaze drifted toward the horizon, where the endless blue sea met the sky in an unbroken line. The journey wasn't an easy one. The first few days at sea were calm, and Eli tried to find comfort in the rhythmic sound of the water lapping against the hull. But the stillness began to play tricks on his mind. Every creak of the ship seemed louder, the whispers of the crew more cryptic. The captain, a grizzled old man with an eye patch, rarely spoke beyond grumbling orders. The crew kept to themselves, casting wary glances at Eli every time he crossed their path. There was a tension in the air that he couldn't quite place. Rusty, ever the alert horse, seemed on edge too. The usually steady animal paced the deck, snorting and tossing his head nervously. Eli tried to soothe him, but the unease between them was palpable. It was as if the sea itself had a secret, one that neither of them could fully understand. As the days stretched into a week, the weather began to change. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, growing thicker by the hour. The wind picked up, sending the sails flapping and causing the ship to lurch dangerously. Waves began to crash against the sides of the vessel, sending sprays of salty water into the air. "Storm's coming," the captain muttered, squinting toward the swelling clouds. "Keep your heads down, all of you." The crew scrambled to secure the ship, and Eli, heart-pounding, hurried to calm Rusty, who was growing increasingly agitated. The storm hit with a ferocity that made the ship feel like a toy in the hands of a child. The wind howled, and the ship tilted dangerously as waves crashed over the deck. Eli clung to the railing, his grip white-knuckled, as he shouted over the roar of the wind. Rusty whinnied in distress, and Eli's eyes darted around. The crew seemed frantic, rushing to secure the sails, but the storm showed no sign of relenting. The captain barked orders, but his voice was lost in the chaos. And then, as if by some cruel twist of fate, the ship's course shifted. Eli looked to the horizon and saw the faint outline of land emerging through the storm. The island. It loomed like a dark shadow against the turbulent sky, its jagged cliffs rising from the sea like the bones of some ancient creature. The ship veered toward it, driven by the winds and waves. Eli's heart raced. Something about the island, even in the midst of the storm, seemed strangely inevitable. It was as if it had been waiting for him all along. As the ship drew closer to the rocky shore, Eli knew that his journey had only just begun. Whatever secrets lay hidden on that island, he was about to discover them whether he was ready or not. The ship's battered hull scraped against the rocky coastline with a bone-jarring sound, the storm's fury still roaring around them. Eli scrambled to his feet, heart racing, as Rusty let out a distressed whinny from the deck. The ship had barely made it to shore, but it didn't matter. They had arrived. The island loomed before them, an untamed, jagged mass of rock and jungle. The storm seemed to have quieted as they approached, but there was something unsettling in the air, an unnatural stillness that made Eli's skin prickle. The trees swayed, their twisted limbs reaching out like long fingers, and the scent of salt water mingled with the damp, earthy smell of the jungle. "Get the horse off the ship," the captain barked. "We need to secure the vessel before the tide pulls us back out." Eli nodded, feeling a strange weight in his chest. He stepped onto the damp sand, helping Rusty down the rickety gangplank and onto the shore. The horse snorted nervously, ears flicking at every sound. Eli glanced around, his instincts telling him there was more to this island than met the eye. "We'll camp here for the night," the captain called out, his voice low. "There's no way we're going further into the island in this storm. We'll need to wait until morning to figure out our next move." The crew scattered, setting up makeshift shelters on the beach, but Eli couldn't shake the feeling that the island was watching them, its dark cliffs, the dense jungle, and the eerie quiet that followed the storm. There was an ancient weight to this place, like it had been forgotten by time itself, waiting for someone to come along and stir up what had been left undisturbed for centuries. That night, the crew stayed huddled around their fire, speaking in hushed tones. Eli, restless, decided to explore. He wasn't sure why, perhaps it was the pull of curiosity or some deeper instinct telling him to go. Rusty, ever the watchful companion, followed him silently through the dense jungle as he moved toward the heart of the island. The jungle felt oppressive, the thick foliage pressing in on him from all sides. He moved carefully, his eyes scanning the dark undergrowth, half expecting something to leap out at him. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth, and the distant sound of crashing waves seemed to fade as they ventured deeper. After what felt like hours of winding through the dense trees, Eli found it an old, crumbling structure half hidden by vines and moss. It looked like a fortress of some kind, its stone walls worn down by the years, yet still standing strong. The entrance was a large archway, framed by ancient carvings that resembled skulls and mythical creatures. The unmistakable markings of pirates. Eli's heart thudded in his chest as he stepped closer. Rusty whinnied softly behind him, his muscles tense. The horse, always the steady companion, was on high alert, ears flicking toward the entrance as if sensing something deeper within. Eli's hand hovered over the stone arch, feeling the cool, weathered surface. There was something strangely familiar about it, something that tugged at his memory. Then, with a deep breath, he stepped through the archway, his boots crunching on the gravel beneath him. Inside, the air was stale, the scent of damp stone filling his lungs. The walls were adorned with faded murals, depicting scenes of pirate ships battling storms and treasure being hidden in secret caves. At the far end of the cavernous room was a pedestal, where a large, weathered chest sat. The sight of it made Eli's pulse quicken. This was it, the treasure Blackbeard Jack had left behind. But something felt off. It wasn't just the chest, it was the way the room seemed to pulse with a strange energy, as if it were waiting for something, or someone, to activate its secrets. Rusty let out a low snort, his eyes fixed on the chest. Eli glanced at the horse, who seemed hesitant to approach further. Something in the air had shifted, and Eli couldn't ignore the chill that ran down his spine. He stepped closer to the chest, his hand reaching for it, but before he could touch it, he heard a soft click. The sound was barely audible, but it was enough to stop him in his tracks. The pedestal began to shift, and a section of the stone floor near the chest slowly sank away, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Eli's heart skipped a beat as he peered into the darkened space. Inside, a small ornate box gleamed faintly, its surface covered in strange markings, much like the ones he had seen outside. This wasn't just treasure. This was something else, something more powerful. He reached down, and as his fingers brushed against the box, a surge of energy pulsed through him. The sensation was like an electric shock, and Eli jerked his hand back, eyes wide. Rusty stamped nervously behind him, clearly agitated by whatever was happening. The chest and the hidden box were tied to something older, something beyond his understanding. The air in the room thickened, and Eli felt a presence, a lingering, malevolent force stirring around him. It wasn't just the treasure. It was the island itself, as if it had been waiting for someone to come and disturb its secrets. A whisper echoed in his mind, faint at first, then clearer. The power of the island. It belongs to no man. Eli stepped back, heart pounding. He knew then this island, this treasure, was more than just a relic of pirates. It was a trap, and the chest was never meant to be opened. As he turned to leave, Rusty stepped closer, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. Eli glanced back at the chest one final time. Whatever lay inside, it was clear that the island had more to reveal. But some secrets, he realized, were better left untouched. The storm had passed as suddenly as it had arrived, leaving the sea eerily calm in its wake. The ship, battered but intact, anchored just off the island's jagged shore. Eli's legs felt unsteady as he stepped onto the wet, rocky ground, but his feet sank into the sand with a sense of finality. Rusty, his ever-reliable companion, snorted and pawed at the ground beside him, clearly uneasy. The island before them was a wild, untamed place, far removed from the civilized world. The thick jungle stretched up the cliffs, its trees like towering sentinels guarding the hidden secrets within. The air was thick with humidity, and the scent of salt water and earth mixed in a strange, intoxicating blend. Eli glanced at the crew, who were busy unloading supplies from the ship, their faces tense and weary from the storm. None of them seemed eager to explore the island any further. They stayed close to the ship, their eyes constantly darting to the dense jungle as though it were alive, watching them. "Let's get the supplies and make camp," the captain barked, his voice rough from the storm. "We'll stay here for the night. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do." But Eli couldn't shake the feeling that the island was calling to him. There was something about it, something in the way it loomed in front of him like an ancient puzzle that begged to be solved. The letter, the inheritance, the mysterious pirate legacy, there had to be more than just an old piece of land waiting for him. The treasure, the power, the answers they all sought, it was all somewhere on this island. And then there was Rusty. The horse's behavior had changed the moment they stepped onto the island. Rusty's usually calm, methodical movements had become restless, his body twitching with nervous energy. Eli could feel it too, a sense of something wrong, a creeping unease that settled deep in his gut. Without thinking, he started toward the jungle. Rusty hesitated for a moment but followed, as if sensing his master's resolve. They walked deeper into the thick trees, the sounds of the jungle pressing in on them from all sides. The air grew heavier, and the shadows seemed to stretch longer as they ventured further. Suddenly, Eli stopped, his breath catching in his throat. Before him stood a massive stone structure, half buried in vines and foliage. It was old, far older than anything Eli had ever seen. The walls were covered with strange markings, symbols that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. It was clear this wasn't some simple ruin, it was something far more significant, something built with purpose. Eli's heart began to pound. This was it. The map he'd found in the wrecked pirate ship had led him here. He could feel it deep in his bones. This was where the treasure lay hidden, where Blackbeard Jack's secrets had been locked away for centuries. But as Eli stepped closer to the stone doorway, Rusty pulled back, his body trembling. The horse's eyes were wide with fear, his ears flat against his head. Eli tried to calm him, but Rusty refused to budge, his hooves digging into the dirt as if trying to anchor himself to the earth. Eli frowned. What was wrong? He reached out to touch the stone doorframe, and the moment his fingers brushed against the cold surface, a strange vibration rippled through the ground beneath his feet. It felt like the island itself had woken, a deep, ancient energy stirring in the depths of the earth. The markings on the stone seemed to glow faintly, the symbols shifting as though alive. Rusty reared back, panic rising in the horse's eyes. Eli felt a shiver run down his spine. He could hear the faint sound of whispering voices, low and guttural, carried on the wind. Something was wrong. This was more than just a pirate's treasure. This island, this ancient place, was tied to something much darker, something that had been buried and forgotten for a reason. Eli's breath quickened as he stood at the threshold of the stone doorway. Rusty's panic was growing, the horse backing away in terror. Eli knew that the choice before him was no simple one. He could enter, claim the treasure, and possibly uncover the power Blackbeard Jack had hidden away. But at what cost? The weight of the decision pressed down on him. He could feel it in the air, in the very stones beneath his feet. There was power here, untold power, but it came with a price. The island's secrets were never meant to be uncovered, and Eli realized that the treasure was not just gold or jewels. It was something far more dangerous. Rusty's desperate whinny cut through his thoughts, snapping him back to reality. The horse had been his guide from the start, his companion through thick and thin. If Rusty was afraid, then perhaps Eli had already gone too far. With a heavy heart, Eli turned away from the doorway, the choice weighing heavily on his soul. He had come for treasure, but what he found here was something far more dangerous, something that might be better left untouched. The island had revealed its secret, but now Eli had to make the hardest choice of all. Leave it buried. The storm finally subsided as the ship crashed against the jagged shoreline, throwing Eli and Rusty into a world unlike any they had known before. The once furious waves had calmed, leaving the island in eerie silence. Eli's heart thudded in his chest as he helped secure Rusty on the shore. The island before him was wild, untouched by modern hands. It was beautiful, yet haunting, its dense jungle swaying with a sinister energy. Eli had come seeking an inheritance, but what lay ahead was far more than a simple property transfer. The island felt ancient, its secrets woven into the land itself. As he explored deeper, following the faded map he had found, he discovered the remnants of Blackbeard Jack's pirate past, hidden caves, abandoned treasure chests, and a strange sense of something watching him. Rusty, ever the protector, seemed to sense this too, refusing to follow Eli into certain parts of the jungle. Time and time again, the horse's instinct led him away from dangers Eli couldn't see. It was then that Eli realized Rusty wasn't just a companion. He was a guide, a guardian, perhaps even more connected to the island than he could comprehend. In the end, Eli chose not to claim the island's dark treasure or unlock its forbidden power. The temptation was great, but Rusty's unwavering loyalty and the lessons learned from the island's mystical pull convinced him to leave the past buried. Eli returned to his ranch, with Rusty by his side, forever changed. The island, with all its mysteries, remained in the distance, a reminder that some secrets are better left untouched. As for Eli, he had found the greatest treasure of all, the unwavering bond between man and horse, and the wisdom to know when to walk away.